You've described Nigel Farage as a fascist.
I think in Nigel Farage we're dealing with a fascist.
Conservative grandee Lord Heseltine. He gave a speech to conference today, and I asked him why in his speech he chose to describe reform as the right-wing equivalents to the fascists of the 1930s.
Well, because that's what they are.
Nigel Farage, he's a good bloke, isn't he? Pipe smoking, pint drinking, proper, good, decent patriot. So why are people calling him a fascist? Well, let's listen to Lord Heseltine expand on this a little bit.
The fascists were anti-Jews, and the protest today is anti-immigrant. But the same arguments, the same sort of human nature is being stirred up.
Stigmatising immigrants? That's a bit rich, isn't it? That doesn't sound like our old boy Nige. Except he did make those comments about Romanians, didn't he? Not wanting to have Romanian neighbours. There was that. I mean, he tried to clarify it afterwards, but it didn't sound great. And then there was also this thing he said about swans and carps.
Nonsensical. If I said to you that swans were being eaten in royal parks in this country, that carp were being taken out of ponds and eaten in this country by people who come from cultures that have a different... Would you agree it's happening here?
And then there was this weird thing that he said about young Muslims.
We have a growing number of young people in this country who do not subscribe to British values, in fact, loathe much of what we stand for. So what do you do?
Who are we talking about there?
Oh, I think we see them on the streets of London every Saturday.
What do they look like? Oh, we're talking about...
What do they look like?
Are we talking about Muslims here?
We are.
And then there was that horrible poster, wasn't there? Okay, I get it. I mean, Farage, you might have a bit of a problem with Romanians, or maybe he doesn't, he's not quite sure. He might think that Muslims don't share any of our values. He might want to pretend that you're going to get loads of people coming from Turkey and the Middle East because of the fact that we were once a part of the European Union, even though that was incorrect, highly inaccurate. He might also want to claim that people are eating carp and swans. A little bit Trumpian, that, isn't it? But, you know, that doesn't make him a fascist, does it? And you know what? I would have to say I agree. On that evidence alone, there's not enough there to convict him with the term fascism. But, you see, here is my problem with Farage. What does he actually stand for? I mean, just take a moment, step back, think about it for a little bit. What does this man actually believe in? What is it that motivates him? What is it that gets him out of bed in the morning and makes him decide, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get involved in politics. What is it that he wants to see for this country? Now, some of you might want to tell me, well, what he wants to do is he wants to make this country great again, like Donald Trump did in America. He wants to build Britain into the great country that it once was. Okay. You know, I mean, it's kind of tempting, isn't it, to want to be the country with the biggest GDP in the world, which is what we used to be, you know, back in the 19th century, just before the First World War and everything. Some of you might even think, well, you know, it'd be nice, wouldn't it, if we could have something like an empire again? Not going to happen, though, is it? Let's be honest. I mean, who is it that fancies going out and taking our really poorly resourced army and trying to take over India again and Africa and the Caribbean and United States of America? Let's see how well that goes for us, right? So it's not going to work, is it? So you can't just go back into the past. So just wanting to be great again in some sort of vague, sentimental, nostalgic sense, that's not really going to cut it in terms of moving us forward. So I go back to my question then. What is it that Farage really wants? What is it that he really has to offer this country? What is his offering when it comes to the cost of living crisis? Ask yourself that question, genuinely. What is he going to do for people who are struggling to pay their rent, to pay their mortgage, to pay their bills, to deal with the ever-increasing prices that we all have to face, electricity, water? What's he going to do with the failure of privatisation? Since I mentioned water, that made me think about failure of privatisation. What's he going to do with the issues that we experience in terms of travel? We all know how expensive trains are these days. We all know how difficult it is to get from one part of the country to another part of the country, unless it's London. London's nice and well connected to everywhere. But what about if you want to get from Leeds to Liverpool or from either one to Manchester? Not so easy, is it? That reduces economic growth. That reduces our ability to actually connect with each other, to commute when it comes to the north. That's the reason why there's massive inequalities, or at least one of the reasons why there are massive inequalities that exist regionally in this country. What is that Farage is going to do about that? What is he going to do about education? Is he going to do anything to deal with tuition fees? A lot of people get into massive debt because of the cost of going to university. What's he going to do when it comes to shortages in the health service? What's he going to do with the health service? Full stop. I mean, there are quotations from him talking about wanting to privatise the health service.
I think we're going to have to think about healthcare very, very differently. And I think we're going to have to move to an insurance-based system of healthcare.
Wanting to have a model based on insurance as opposed to the model that we've had ever since 1945. Proper patriot though, isn't he? Proper patriot, wants to keep all of our British institutions and our British values, except for the one that is the most popular institution in this country, the NHS, which he said he wants to turn into an insurance-based model. What is this offering that Farage is giving us? Except, of course, one thing which we must never forget. He wants to deal with immigration, doesn't he? He wants to stop the boats. He wants to even deport people now. Deport people who are legally a part of this country. People with indefinite leave to remain. Just cancel it. Cancel it. We didn't mean it. You know, we had our fingers crossed behind our back. So, yeah, we're going to do that. Apart from stigmatizing immigrants, apart from wanting to leave all of these institutions that basically make us a serious country that can cooperate with other countries, like the ECHR, and of course before that, the European Union, which of course has had a massively negative economic impact on our country. And anyone who is looking at the figures, anyone who's being honest, has acknowledged that now. What else is it that he has to offer you? Now, some of you have been so stoked up by this idea of there being some kind of invasion, and, people have talked about things like grooming gangs. People have talked about the rapist who recently was allowed out of jail, ridiculously, when he was supposed to be being deported. There are failures in the system. By the way, what is Farage going to do to improve police? What is he going to do in terms of making sure that police are properly resourced? What are the plans? What is the framework? Anyway, we've been conditioned, haven't we, by Farage and people like Farage, but he is, of course, the main man, to think that all of our problems come down to immigration. But if we take just a few moments to really think about it, we realise there are so many other things that we need to deal with in this country. And the fact that he doesn't care about any of those things, the fact that he doesn't have a plan that even begins to resemble something practical and something realistic on any of these issues should tell you something very clearly. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about resolving the crisis in terms of social care. He doesn't care about the NHS. He doesn't care about transport networks. He doesn't care about economic growth. He doesn't care about any of these things. None of what he says adds up in terms of providing a vision for this country and dealing with the problems that we're going to face in terms of our material standards of living, the amount of money we've got at the end of the month. Nothing that he is offering is going to improve any of that. But what he does care about is immigrants. What he does care about is migration. What he does care about are whether we have Romanian neighbours. Dealt with that, we left the European Union. So what does he care about now? He cares about the Muslims. He cares about these people that don't share our values. Farage is someone who knows what he doesn't like. And what he doesn't like are people who are different from him. And what he does like is attention, and lots of it. And he's found himself in a position now where he's top of the polls, and he's offering this country basically nothing except hatred, division, and stigmatization. And so you have people like Lord Heseltine, you have people like Zach Polanski, you have other people like myself who look at him and think, if all you've got to offer to this debate right now, when things are so difficult and challenging when it comes to people's genuine economic concerns, is stigmatization, if all you've got to offer is to take the anger, to take the pain, to take the fear, to take the misery that people are having right now, and to turn that on those who are brown, foreign, of a different religion, if that's all you've got to offer, then maybe you're a fascist, maybe you're not. Look, the evidence isn't in yet. But at best, aren't you a handmaiden to fascism? Aren't you leading people in that direction? Aren't you that pipeline that ends up going down in the direction of Tommy Robinson, Elon Musk, and historically, aren't you really influenced and driven by the likes of Enoch Powell? And contemporarily, aren't you the sort of person who is driven by your bosom buddy in the United States, Donald Trump, who, and I made another video on this, I encourage you to give it a watch if you haven't already, who is turning the United States of America into a fascist hellhole? He's certainly doing his best anyway. And I hope to God that my cousins in the United States of America are able to stand up to him. But you give someone like him the power of the presidency, it ain't going to go well. And the same is true in this country. You give someone like Farage a position of prime minister in this country when he doesn't know what the hell he wants to do, except, of course, kick out a few migrants, kick out a few Muslims, get rid of those people who don't share British values, even though the most popular British institution in this country is one that he has no love for at all and wants to get rid of. It doesn't add up, does it? It doesn't add up. Don't let your pain and misery be turned into someone else's advantage. Don't let yourself be exploited by someone who has no vision for this country. You'll tell yourself that you do. Some of you buy into this cult of personality. Some people think the guy's got charisma. I think he's got any charisma. I think the guy's pompous and odious, to be quite honest with you. But that's not really important. That's by the by. What really matters is who has the answers to the challenges that we're facing right now. Maybe you get rid of some of these migrants, right? Maybe you kick some of them out. Maybe you deport them somewhere. Although if you leave all of these international treaties and cooperative structures, no one has a duty to accept them. So, what do you do with these people? But maybe you find some way of getting rid of them. Maybe you just put them into a massive prison camp somewhere, which is what Trump is doing in the United States of America. But how does that actually make any of us better off? Black, white, brown, Christian, Muslim, Romanian, Jew, any of us, man, woman, child, how are any of us really going to be better off? Aren't you, anyone out there watching this who is a fan of Nigel Farage, aren't you basically supporting this man as a way of distracting yourself from dealing with the real issues that we all need to come together and face as a country, as a society? And isn't this distraction going to be a distraction that you could end up paying for the rest of your life? My argument is this. There are real challenges that we need to address right now. We need serious people with serious answers to serious questions. If it comes to migration and doing something about migration, of course, that's one of the things that we can look at and come to together. But that can't be the only answer, because that isn't any answer at all. Thank you for watching this video. Do join me in the fight against fascism. Let's fight it all. Whether Farage is a fascist or not, I'll tell you what he is. He's a bloody plonker and he's useless. So don't vote for him. Vote for someone who's actually got some answers. Vote for someone who's really trying to tackle the difficult questions that we're facing in our society right now. I would argue the person that is best placed to do that is Zach Polanski. There are going to be people watching this that don't agree with all of his views. Let's have the conversation together, because he actually wants to do something. He actually wants to make change. Keir Starmer's useless. I think everybody in the world, certainly everyone in this country, agrees with that. The Tories, forget about the Tories, they're finished. We need a new party. Definitely we need a new party. Definitely we need reform. But guess what? We don't need reform. We need serious answers. Like and subscribe if you would, and join me on the next video. Take care, everyone.
We need an attitudinal change towards success, towards money, towards business, towards tax and incentives. And this is stuff that you can't necessarily write in a manifesto.
Well, you're going to have to, though, aren't you?
No, you can't. You can't. Attitudinal stuff, you cannot write
this one was called a contract, and there are promises in it that don't stand anymore.
You've been at the BBC all your life. I don't think you understand what I'm saying. I'm talking about attitudinal change within society. You can't put any of that in manifestos. It's about a buzz. It's about a vibe.